I went to DreamCon expecting to talk business. I left wondering when being an adult started meaning we had to take ourselves so seriously. So last week, I went down to Houston to experience DreamCon. For those of you who don't know who I am, I've represented professional mixed martial artists and combat sports athletes and been an attorney for the last 10 plus years. And I've recently moved into working at Green Room Legal, where we handle the creator space and represent a lot of top streamers and content creators. So for me, when I thought of going to DreamCon, I remember when I originally made this switch, it was mentioned to me as one of the top conventions that I may be interested in, especially because for me, I wanted to work with a lot of creators of color and just understand and network and meet the people who are making moves on that side of the game. I was invited by a friend who works with RDC World, and when I got there, I just was blown away from second number one. It's 90 degrees in Houston, 90 plus, and the line to get in at 10 a.m. on Friday was around the corner. Not only that, but I have never seen more black folks dressed up in cosplay of all kinds, from the grandma from the clumps to Monkey D. Luffy to a pack of girls that were all Roronoa Zoro. It was amazing. And for me, I just had so much of a like identity shift from seeing and just experiencing that entire weekend. So for those of you who don't know, DreamCon is one of the top black creator conventions. So this is also an important part because a lot of stuff has been going on around the internet that showed some of the outlier moments that I don't think were representative of the experience that a lot of people had. First, I saw one wrestling video where somebody looked like they got dropped on their head by a guy who definitely knew how to wrestle. There was another moment that was a little more risque that was going on. But like that stuff was happening in little pockets that popped up over the weekend. There were 40,000 people who bought tickets to DreamCon. This is like a 2 or 3 level convention center in Houston, which is a massive market. So there's always going to be something that goes wrong. The one thing that really was cringe that I saw was a guy lifting up a girl who was in cosplay who didn't ask to be touched, and he goes and picks her up and kind of started a little bit of drama, but people rallied around and kind of got him out of the way. For me, I had never experienced Comic-Con or anything like that, and working in the world of sports, it's actually in combat sports, there's a lot of anime fans and people like that, but to see it live and to see how many people were joyously representing their hobbies, their fandoms, that's what I never really got to experience before until I went to DreamCon. Day one, I walked in and really wandered around for about an hour or two on the floor. And the floor had nothing but booths of people selling, whether it was anime merch, their own clothing brands. A lot of comic creators and production companies were there. There were, YouTube was there doing something. McDonald's had one of the anime style factory, what do you call those? The conveyor belts for chicken tenders. It was kind of funny how they had it. It was like an anime setup where you could, take the different ingredients and make your tenders. There were so many cool things going on. And originally I was supposed to go with a few creators, and unfortunately they had something come up. So as I wandered, nobody knew who I was, and I was dressed. I had a partner badge. So I was dressed in a polo, some decent pants, and some upscale tennis shoes. And I remember very quickly feeling like nobody said anything. Nobody gave me like a side eye, but being like, man, I'm dressed like a suit and everybody else is just kind of doing their thing. I would say like 75% of the people were in cosplay. And even if they weren't in cosplay, they had some piece of clothing that was, anime references or comic book references or something to that effect. And to me, honestly, I just was like, man, I should have worn my hat. I was feeling the FOMO of not representing the straw hats while I was out there, because I'm about 400 episodes into One Piece right now. So one of the things that immediately stood out to me was how much support and safety there was there. And I don't mean physically. I mean, physically it was fine. The safety obviously was up to par. But what I mean is people feeling like they can genuinely be themselves. There were so many moments where there was a DJ set up somewhere, or someone just had a speaker in the hallway that started playing music, and people would rush over to just hype them up for their dance or whatever routine they were doing, or they were jumping in themselves and just, I mean, it was vibes, it was scenes. And I think when I thought about it, everything that occurred to me was the idea that as black folks in America, there's not many places where we can just go do that in a place that feels safe and free of judgment. There were so many things I saw that I just imagined how many people would talk shit or clown somebody in the moment if that happened anywhere other than here. So the amount of love people were showing, no matter what your weight was, no matter what you look like, no matter how deep you were into your cosplay, everyone was hyping each other up. If people had matching costumes, they were dapping them up in the hallway, taking pictures together. And that's the kind of thing that is rare to see in the wider world. So it really struck me that DreamCon is a special place for people who care about these types of things, whether it's the creator world, whether it's the anime world, or kind of other eclectic tastes. So one thing that also stood out to me was how well organized it was. If you're going to DreamCon, there's an app that has every single scheduled event, and there were tons. I'll get to that later, but you could set your whole schedule for everything you wanted to see and do over the weekend and essentially have your own customized calendar. So I was able to sit in on a lot of the panels that I felt were very useful. So on the second floor, after kind of wandering around and doing some shopping, I came away with some comic books and some other trinkets. There was a lot of things I couldn't fit into my bag because trust me, I was ready to get the Roronoa Zoro 3 swords back. They had a sword maker there who was creating or had created all these weapons from different anime. And I went upstairs, and upstairs was where there was a lot more of the scheduled activities. So there I wandered into what was called the stadium, and the stadium had esports was a massive thing there too. So there was a whole back part of the first floor that was nothing but computers and setups for people to play games and to compete with each other. And there were some tournaments going on. But when I went up to that second floor, Twitch had its own breakout room, which I'll get to later. Then there was the main stage, but there was also not only a merch store for DreamCon itself, but people were playing cards. People were doing puzzles in another room. YouTube had a room where creators could come in and ask channel-specific questions to help them. So it really opened my eyes to the idea that anyone who's a creator, and especially if you're a person of color, this is the type of place you need to be so that you can get up on the game. As algorithms change and other things go on, me working in the world of creators now, I've had to learn and get up to speed on it. And it was very helpful to sit through some of the panels. And all of them were interactive. None of the panels were just sit and get talked to. This was Q&A sessions and people standing around and maybe even wandering around the conference afterwards so you can ask them questions and you can connect with them. And I thought the way they had that set up was very fluid, where even the people who were speaking and who were kind of, specialists in this space, they were wandering around as well, and they were freely accessible to anybody who wanted to ask them questions. And that energy is not everywhere. You can't do that in an MMA fight. You can't do that in the sports world. You can do that at a place like DreamCon. When I went to the Twitter room, it really stood out to me. Or sorry, not Twitter, Twitch. Twitch had a lot of African American employees there, as well as the CEO, who came and did his own fireside chat style Q&A session. And he was just chilling in the room half of the day. As a matter of fact, one guy who came into the room late bumped into him later because he did look a bit out of place. He was very, very casual. Somebody bumped into him and was like, "Oh, what do you do in the creator space?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I'm the CEO of Twitch." But then they proceeded to stand there and talk for another 10, 15 minutes. And where else can you do that and speak to the head of a company that is monetizing content for so many people and getting the game and getting insights directly from someone like that? That's an amazing experience to have. So if you're a content creator, DreamCon, if you use your time wisely and you're smart about it, had a wealth of information for how this space works and how to maximize your monetization, the algorithms, and everything in between. One other piece that I felt was critical that I want to shout out to Twitch, their entire team, as I explained what I do in representing creators, they were introducing me to creators who walked by. You could tell that they have a passion for what they do, and seeing these different affinity groups that operate on the Twitch platform win. So it wasn't just black creators. They had affinity groups for all different kinds of minorities that are operating on Twitch. And I think that's a valuable asset for anybody. And you could see how excited people were to see them. Like, they clearly know each other. They're clearly on the ground with these creators on a regular basis. So I wanted to shout them out and give them their flowers, because really they made my experience so much better, because I was able to meet them and ask them questions, and that led to other introductions. So, shout out to Twitch for being real ones, and YouTube as well. YouTube was doing something very similar. They had a spot down in the first floor that allowed people to ask questions, but there was appointment-based YouTube room on the second floor where you could book an appointment and go in and talk to high-level employees of YouTube, and they would break things down for you. And I thought that was super valuable, and I obviously hadn't launched this channel yet, but I felt that that is something that most creators may not be taking advantage of. These moments of going to conferences like this. The second floor also was very specifically, there was 3 floors. So the second floor actually was where a lot of the cosplay people were meeting. And I thought it was hilarious that they had like a cosplay repair studio. And like, that's just provided by DreamCon, just helping people fix their costumes that were custom made. But when you go to the third floor, that was where the Twitch room was. That was where a lot of the panels were. And it was just so cool to see how much love was being shown to everybody. Everyone who was dressed up and would run into someone else with the same costume, they dap each other up, they give hugs, they're taking pictures. It's rare to have black folks be able to be in a number. There were 40,000 tickets sold. So 40,000 people came through that convention center looking to connect, looking for a safe place, and for a place to just enjoy themselves. I think the term that's been going around on everything I've seen from DreamCon is adding whimsy to your life. And I do think whimsy is a part of it. But what was wild was I met some people at the hotel. I met people at restaurants, and you just casually say what's up, and you'd find out we were all there for DreamCon. And you'd see those same people in there. And I mean, some of these are bodybuilders or dudes who look like they played Division I sports somewhere. And then when you run into them in the convention, they're decked out in costume, having a great time, even to the point that one of the after parties we went to was on a patio in Houston. They started playing the Pokemon theme song, and everything went from like trap music to Pokemon in 2 seconds, and everyone went crazy and was having a good time, hyping each other up. And that's just an energy that I think we need, that we don't get everywhere else. And it's hard when you're trying to be corporate and you're trying to be professional. Day 2, I actually decided, look, I'm not going to try to look like a lawyer anymore. I'm going to say, let me just be me. That was what I took from this experience, was I can just be me here and nobody's judging me. I'm still in the room. I'm still who I am. I still have the skill set. I still have the knowledge. But as soon as I did that, I had more people come up to me. The second day I wore a shirt from a company that I love here in St. Louis called Pretty Bad Co. And it's an artist who makes stickers and t-shirts and things like that, and it's a shirt with a mouse who's wearing a knight's armor, and he's standing in front of a burning castle, and it says, "I must keep going, for I know not what else to do." And I had 3 or 4 people stop me, ask where my shirt was, hype me up about it, and that's when I knew I made the right move and I knew I was in the right place. So these are the kind of experiences that happened all weekend. And the things that are projected online, which are, the little freaky videos and, the unfortunate incident with the cosplaying young lady who got picked up against her will. Those are things that happen when you have big conferences like this, but they were handled very professionally when they were checked. And it was not what was going on left and right at the conference. What was going on left and right in the conference was joy, happiness, connection, and a safe place for expression and people to celebrate the things that make them unique. I think anyone who would have went there would have been more likely to want to dive into anime, want to dive into content creation, and just feel the energy of these people and how much love is in that space for those people there in that moment. I see so many people talking about, I'm adding this to my calendar. I'm going to buy tickets as soon as they go on sale. I think next year may be even bigger, and I don't have a reference point from the prior years, but I can say that it was absolutely well worth my time, not even just on a professional level, but on a level of being a black professional who enjoys being silly and acting a fool sometimes and having fun and laughing and just enjoying the things that I enjoy without worry about any sort of, judgment. The level of freedom that I felt there is something that I feel like we should all experience in our lives. So, as a professional, I always thought that I had to be a certain way. And I think in different industries, there's different standards for all of that. But I would encourage everybody to not be afraid to let out your true inner self. Like the things that you like. The older we all get, I think the more we understand that trying to hide parts of ourselves really doesn't matter, because the people you're supposed to connect with, you'll connect with. The people that you're supposed to be, in the same circle as, you'll find a way in that circle. And the people who are judgmental, let them be judgmental. They're not for you anyway. So when I left, all I thought about was, why am I so reserved? Why am I always concerned about how I come across? Now, first impressions do matter, but I think how you make people feel is more important than how you look and what you say and what you do. If somebody feels your energy, that's what DreamCon really brought to the table, was positive energy for people to be themselves. So if you get a chance, I would make sure to follow DreamCon on socials. Keep your ears open, because I can't imagine the next year is not going to be even bigger than this was. And we all deserve some time to be off the clock.